If Johnson's mind had been at all imaginative or attuned to anything higher than brutal common sense, he would not have sat with his back to the open French window that night. Johnson was a man with good conceit of himself. He prided himself especially on his domestic accomplishments. He was a born cook and manager, he told his friends, and his hobby was to go down to a little bungalow of his in the country and do for himself during the weekends. Usually he had friends with him to whom he could show off his culinary art, but sometimes he liked to be alone. He was a self-made man, was Johnson. His business, that of running up small flats and letting them to artisans, rent strictly in advance, brought him in a generous income, and it was his nature to boast of his smart modes of ejection if an unhappy tenant was not ready with his weekly payments. This Saturday night, he happened to be alone. His son Tony had said he might possibly turn up, but had not done so. Johnson had just finished a choice little meal, had cleared the table and settled himself in front of it, meaning to go into some accounts before he went to bed. He was feeling sleepy, particularly comfortable, and too lazy to begin his work at once. He lighted his pipe and sat contentedly, fingering a fat pocketbook on the table before him. The twilight was coming on apace, and Johnson was just making up his mind to light the lamp when he heard a slight noise behind him. "That you, Tony?" he asked, and slowly turned his head. The next moment he felt something thick and dark thrown over his head and face, while a sickening, deadly essence permeated his every sense. He struggled madly and tried to rise, fell back and collapsed, insensate, into the wooden armchair. When he regained consciousness, he was gagged and bound, strapped into his seat in a way it was impossible to ease. Before him, facing the full moon, the light of which streamed in at the windows, stood a man. Who was he? Johnson thought he recognized the face, half covered as it was by cap and muffler. But when the other, with an impatient movement, flung aside these wrappings, he knew him at once. It was young Merrill, the cinema musician, whom he had ejected from one of his flats in his own inimitable way. But how changed he was! The open face was haggard now, and cynical. His deep dead eyes looked derisive. His lips twitched, and the trembling hands were clenched. "Do you remember me, my friend?" he began. "You cannot answer, of course, but I see you do. And do you remember the night you turned us out, my sick wife and me, out into the frost and snow without a penny? You had forgotten it, perhaps, but do you think I would forget? Perhaps you did. You have done so many brutal deeds. But you were mistaken this once, my friend. Mistaken this once." The pupils of Johnson's eyes expanded as he tried with all his strength to pull back from the face of the speaker as it approached nearer and nearer to his, with the emphasis of the last word. For there was a mania written on the pallid countenance, and the lurid glare of the wild eyes was shown up vividly by the moonlight. "That night's exposure killed my wife," Merrill went on hoarsely, standing up again. "She, my only friend, died as much by your hand as if you had actually shot her. Her delicate frame could not stand the roughing we had to go through. After 3 weeks of delirium, she died. It is for that I have come to balance accounts." Johnson's heart pounded in his chest. His eyes, the only means of expression left to him, pleaded with his captor. "Oh, I like the fear in your eyes, my friend. They look so beseeching, like a rabbit caught in a ferreting net. Yes, I could stand and watch them for hours. For I remember, you know, how my wife pleaded with you. And what you said, too. Every word of it is branded on my soul. But the time is short and I must get about my business. I have come to make a little entertainment for you. He turned toward the table. See, I am moving your things. Don't be alarmed, I shall not touch your money. You're one god. But, if I did, it would not matter. You will have no need for it again, my friend, for I have brought you a present, something far more interesting than money. Quite a pretty little thing, and such a simple device. Look, I have made the table clear, and now I sweep aside the cloth, that I may arrange my little toy for you to see. It is a clock, you notice. Just a small American thing. With the hour hand, I am connecting this little piece of wire. You cannot make it out? But you will when I explain. This wooden box, to which the wire is joined at the other end, contains a little apparatus worked by electricity. And this other wire, emerging from the side of it, is connected to the stop on the clock, just under the 12. Now do you understand? Ah, I see by your eyes that you have guessed. When the shorthand reaches the 12, the circuit will be connected by the stop. The electric apparatus will be set in motion. The box, my friend, also contains a powerful explosive. Yes, after 12 tonight, you will need no more money, for I have come to show you the same mercy you showed my wife. The man in the chair gave such a wild leap that it actually made a faint sound on the floor. His limbs, tied at every joint, were immovable. Merrill chuckled, the gibbering chuckle of a maniac. I love to see you ride, my friend, he continued in a gloating tone. I love to think of the commotion in that craven heart of yours. But look, the waiting is the worst part, after all, and it's why clock now. Already 9 o'clock. And you only have to wait until midnight. What is the wait of 3 hours to my 3 weeks of agony? There, now I have finished. There is no need of a light that you may see the time. The face of the clock is luminous. It is the only light you will have. That and the moon. A mere glowworm fire to show you when the end is near. No one will come. I have taken care of that. So you will have these 3 last hours to yourself. Goodbye, my dear friend. And in your last moments, think of my wife. Johnson's eyes were bloodshot and tense with fear. But with a derisive nod, the other man turned away. He heard the click of the French window as it was carefully shut. He heard the crunch of feet on the gravel getting fainter and fainter. Then, but for the clock, utter silence. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. 10 o'clock. The hands seemed to race over the dial as Johnson, with straining eyes, watched them go round. But there were still 2 hours. Surely, someone would come to release him before that accusing clock reached midnight. There were neighbors not a half a mile away. If he could only move one joint, he felt he could loose himself. If he could only call, surely someone would hear him. Could he move the chair? He tensed his body and tried. It would not move this way or that. It had been firmly tied to the table legs. An inarticulate sob rose in his throat. He could not utter it, though. The thick mass that was in his mouth. The shadows gathered darkly in the corners of the room. They were intensified by the moonlight, which lay in a silvery patch across the parquet floor. The tremulous noise of a mouse showed itself for an instant under the edge of the fender. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. 11:15. The mouse, emboldened by the continued silence, came forward stealthily into the open, ran halfway toward the chair, then, overcome by its own temerity, turned and fled under the cover again. There was a faint tapping at the window. The bound man's heart gave a sudden leap of hope. It was only the ivy leaves, stirred by the rising night breeze, that fretted against the window pane. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. 5 minutes to 12. The form in the chair seemed to have shrunk into that of an old man. Sweat poured from the grey forehead and fell in heavy drops on the cheeks. The eyes bulged from their sockets. The mouse, fearing nothing now, boldly crossed from the fender to the chair, running over the left boot of the bound man as it made for the feast of crumbs beneath the table. Tick-tack, tick-tack, tick-tack. The glassy eyes of the dead man gazed with a fixed horror at the dial before them. The clock stopped, but the silence was still profound, for the box on the table was empty.